Hello and welcome to today's European SharePoint Office 365 and Azure Community webinar. My name is Orla and I'm delighted to be joined by Philipp Erdkönig from WEBCON, who will be talking to you today about how low-code needs to grow up to finally become the new standard in enterprise software delivery. Remember to join in the conversation about today's webinar on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EuropeanSP and our hashtag is ESPC22. Don't forget to check out the Resource Centre. This is updated daily with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. Simply visit sharepointeurope.com and click the content link at the top. Continue your learning by joining us next week for Teams Week, a full week for free online Microsoft Teams learning. Find out more at sharepointeurope.com/your guide to Microsoft Teams. Our ESPC22 early bird sale is now on. Save €200 on 3- and 4-day tickets. Find out more at sharepointeurope.com, but hurry as this sale ends the end of September. We're delighted to announce the return of the ESPC Community Awards. The awards represent and recognise the best projects, people and teams in Europe. The aim of the ESPC Awards is to award those in the Microsoft 365 and Azure space for their hard work, innovation and dedication. Enter before September 14th and share the story of your successes, recognise the efforts of you and your team, and perhaps most importantly, help the community learn from your experience. Find out more at sharepointeurope.com/ESPC22-awards. After the webinar, we will have a questions and answers session. Type any question you have in the questions window. We will select them and call them out at the end of the presentation. And now I'm going to pass you over to our presenter, Philipp. Hello, Philipp.
Hello. Welcome to my webinar with the short and catchy title of Low-Code Needs to Grow Up to Finally Become the New Standard in Enterprise Software Delivery. So you might now also see my screen. And
you can see it. Thanks, Philipp.
Let's get started. First of all, a few words about myself. Who am I? My name is Philipp Erdkönig. I've been in the IT industry for over 15 years now. I started off at an ERP background, later on moved on to Industry 4.0. So I'm deep into business process automation and digitization, and use that experience also in the last 3 years, where I've been focusing on business process automation with the help of low-code. There is a few things you should know before we start today's session. First of all, I work for a vendor for WEBCON. Probably you've heard the name once or twice or many times. However, this session is vendor agnostic. So whatever I say is true for all low-code platforms that are out there. So because today I do not want to sell you anything, it's about showing you how to use the full potential of low-code to really speed up the digitization of business processes. How did I come up with the idea for this webinar today? Well, the starting point was us, so WEBCON, taking part as a partner in the largest research project on the low-code and no-code fields in the DACH region. DACH stands for Germany, Austria, Switzerland, so basically the German-speaking countries. This study has been conducted by Foundry, formerly known as IDG, and they asked over 600 companies about their usage and their experience with low-code. The results were presented in mid-June 2022, and I got, as a partner of the study, the results a bit earlier. And when I saw them, there were results that aren't really surprising. So there's obvious things like you hear from Gartner, from Forrester all the time that, yeah, the usage of low code is increasing. It's in the DACH region at the level of 65% of companies having at least one low code platform. So it's not really a surprise that low code is popular, and also that the people we asked were seeing a future of low code rather, well, with an increase of its importance within their organization and other organizations. So until then, it wasn't really surprising. Then I kept on browsing through this study results, and I came to this one here, showing well, the usage of the low-code platform. So this is the results for companies that have a low-code platform or no-code platform. And they were asked, okay, over the last 5 years, how many projects have you actually done using this platform? And if you take a closer look here, this is really surprising. Almost 80%, exactly 78.9%, did only one application per year or even less. So that's really, really surprising for someone who is invested in a new technology and is then not using it. So my conclusion was that, well, most of us are simply doing it wrong, because low code is there to speed up digitization, to build applications, automate business processes at a pace that wasn't possible earlier. And now you see results that, well, there is like one project going on in most of the companies a year. So, well, instead of actually focusing on what got wrong in this 80%, I started to wonder, well, then what's the secret of those companies on the right side here that do many projects per year? This is also the type of companies that I'm used to work with, honestly, at WEBCON. So those companies doing a lot of projects and using low code as its full potential, as it should be. I picked out 2 of these companies. One of them is Pratt & Whitney Canada. You probably know them. They're like one of the 3 big names in the production of airplane engines. They're a global organization with 10,000 employees. And well, they have redone the way of how they do low code with visible results, because after half a year of usage, they already had more than 20 applications delivered, and there were 12 delivery projects ongoing at that moment. So the link below leads to an interview, actually a conversation that you can watch on YouTube, which is like half a year into their usage of the low-code platform WEBCON BPS and the experience they've done. Now they are in year 2, and they are, I guess, more or less around a bit above 100 applications being delivered and about 20 ongoing projects at the moment. Another customer I know and I had the pleasure not to work with, unfortunately, but to speak to, is Echo Investments. They are into low code for 4 years now, and within those 4 years they have delivered 90 applications for their entire business, so also their core processes, everything. And there is many more to come. So as you can see, there is companies that do way more than this one project per year, but the question is now, what do they do different? What is their secret? Well, it's obviously, as I said, they're using the same low-code platform. That's not what I want to focus on about. It's about their way of thinking about application development. They think in a way that's different. they do not focus on one application at a time. They prioritize anything that helps them deliver multiple solutions. So they focus on the total throughput of development and not on one single project. Also, at the same time, they keep in mind their stakeholders' expectations. Coming back to our study, what are those expectations? Well, the top three aims or goals of using low-code is to lower costs, to shorten the time to business, and to build solutions closer to business requirements. Especially for CIOs, that's the top one priority. In order to reach those goals, however, you have to use economies of scale and synergies within your organization, within your resources that you have to really meet these expectations and to really start working on many applications at the same time. Probably you can already imagine where I'm going when talking about economies of scale, but don't worry, I won't start from 1913 when Henry Ford set up his first factory, as we have just 50 minutes left in here. So rather, I would just use this idea and claim that you have to think of a low-code platform not just as a tool, but as an application factory for the mass production of business applications. That's the main thought we're gonna base on today. So what are the crucial factors for the success of such an application factory? What makes it deliver outputs in the hundreds of applications rather than in one or two applications per year? So I picked, of course, there are many factors that are important. However, I picked the four most crucial ones, and I will lead you through them within the next minutes. The first factor is consistency. What do I mean by consistency? Well, let me show you what I don't mean by consistency. So this is rather inconsistency. The truth about consistency, however, is that, well, users don't really love it. But on the other hand, they hate inconsistency. A good example for consistency is Microsoft Office applications. They are very consistent in where the save button is, where you do the font settings, even where you do reviewing. All of it looks the same, whether you work with PowerPoint, with Excel, or with Word. And consistency brings a lot of advantages when it comes to the amount of training needed. When you have to delegate work or pick up others' work by yourself. In an inconsistent application environment, this is really hard to do, nearly impossible sometimes. It's also hard to administrate and maintain applications that are inconsistently built. So with consistency comes reliability and stability. And this is something you definitely want to have in your factory. If you want to mass produce, you have to have something stable and reliable. Second factor is continuous improvement. There is an old proverb, it's like from the 19th century, I think, coming actually from carpentry, which says measure twice, cut once. Well, because with a piece of wood, you basically have only one try to do it right. However, in the digital world, this is not true. You can cut as many times as you need to get things done properly. So in the 21st century, of course, for carpentry, this is still true. There is like no versioning of a piece of wood still. However, in the digital world of the 21st century, this way of thinking is rather bad because it leads to a lot of problems, one of which is paralysis by analysis. I don't know if you know this term. This means that you overanalyze things, so like what an application should look like, and therefore use too much time, too much energy, and nothing is moving on in your project. Why is that? Well, for most people, it's very difficult to imagine something new that's not there. So if you ask someone in your company to draw a full picture of an application that should be created from scratch by giving them a piece of paper or a Word template and say, please describe what you need. This is nearly impossible for most people. So how to get out of this paralysis by analysis? How to avoid it? Well, first of all, you have to accept that however good an analysis you do, you will never on the first try deliver an application that's 100% perfect. And for people, it's way easier to criticize something that exists than, again, imagining something that's not there. So this means that it's way better to go the way of releasing quickly and refining regularly. How do you do that? Well, you create a prototype or minimum viable product. You collect feedback on that prototype or minimum viable product, so on something that exists, and that way get way better feedback and use this feedback to adapt. This allows you to deliver value way faster. So, because when you work with prototypes, when you work with MVPs, and this is also something I hear all the time, it's simply faster. So you deliver first way earlier than other projects working with waterfall. You deliver fast and you deliver more. What's important though, if you work with prototypes and MVPs, improvement has to be a continuous process in this. So you cannot end up having 100 of prototypes and MVPs. That's not the point here. So you use this as a base and start a process of continuous improvement, of continuous review. Like that, the value created by your applications is continuously growing, but also never falling, because improvement also means adaptation to new requirements. So also, if you deliver something in 5 years, it's not outdated. It's always up to date if you work like this. This allows you to get more work done at the same time. So instead of planning, and finally building something, you spend way more time on actually building, on creating value, on getting work done. And if you have something built, the second planning phase is going to be way more constructive. You're going to get way better input here to start again building. So if all of this sounds like agile, yeah, that's because it is. So I have to say, yes, agile, many people don't like agile, but it should be applied to low code, definitely. Although we could do it without the stand-up meetings in the morning. Let's move on to the third factor, which is I called it, let the platform do the work. Obviously, this means the low-code platform. So remember, you're a factory and not a boutique. So if you think like this craftsman on the left side, he might do nice suits, yes, perfect. But if you want to produce 100 cars per day, you can have 100 craftsmen to build those cars, but you can do it with less craftsmen and a factory that delivers standard tools. So even if this means that if you have just one paint shop, all your cars are gonna come out of the factory in the same color, well, this is something you should accept. However, when talking about building cars or coming back to IT development of applications, well, the development is only 10% of delivery. So it's not only using about the standard tools of a platform for development, because obviously low code is all about quick development. It's configuration instead of writing code, of writing pro code. It's supposed to speed up development. Yeah, that's true. And this is also what the majority of not only vendors, but also users focus on. The problem here is if you only work on this 10% to be more efficient there, to be faster there, you do not really gain a lot in the whole delivery process. You also have to focus on the other 90% of delivery. So what are the other 90% of delivery? I call them responsibility features, because this is everything that a responsible developer knows he has to do. It's stuff like security, like stage deployment, compliance, very important, not only in certain industries, but in basically all companies. It's about handling changes, about documenting your work, about what does this application actually do, how does it behave. It's about updates, about user trainings, it's about maintaining applications. That's all part of software delivery. Without these parts, well, sooner or later, your application is going to break because an incident happened or an auditor comes in, and what then? It has to be shut down. Same if there is like security or availability issues. If users don't accept the applications you deliver, for instance, because they're inconsistent or simply don't work, there's errors popping up all the time. So all of this has to be done. Otherwise, your applications won't create value, they won't be a success. So your low-code platform has to cover those 90% as well, not just the 10% of development, but the full 100% of delivery. Because otherwise, you're again going back to being this craftsman, to being this tailor, and who ends up doing everything with his own hands. And this is not economies of scale. This doesn't allow you to build and build and build because there is a big slowdown in the entire process here. So the fourth and last factor for a successful running of an application factory is IT involvement. In order to run a successful factory, you need the right crew. So let's talk about the first part of the crew, which is citizens. It has shown that, well, citizen developers, a whole group of citizen developers that has organically grown within your company, is not capable of running an application factory. Yes, you can have citizen developers, a lot of them, but even if they build a lot of application, those applications have one aim only, to relieve their personal pain. Citizen developers, they don't simply care about consistency. Does this look like what my colleague from the other department built? They don't talk about this stuff. They don't have time for continuous improvement. So as long as it suits them, the application is just fine. They're not interested in improving it and investing their precious time in there. And that's mainly the issue, time, because citizens, well, they have a job already, which has to be done. So also, they mostly don't care about all those responsibility features, sorry, because somehow it will work out anyhow for them. So to sum it up, citizens are not the ones that should be running the production in your factory. They should act as the designers, because still citizens are the users of the applications you build, so they know best what they need. To put it in other words, citizens, they should own the what, whereas moving on now to the other part of the crew, the IT crew, who should own the how applications should be built. So IT should be responsible for the production process in your factory and make sure that this process happens according to standards of responsible application development. For most of you, these standards of responsible application development might sound a lot like, well, finding a lot of reasons why this and that can't be done, why things take ages. But this is not true, because with a factory for the mass production of business applications, where things go fast, they go quick, IT will no longer be the department of no, but it will become the department of how, as in how should it work? How should we build this for you? In the end, there is one more thing I want to show, because, well, it is a sponsored session after all. So I will talk a bit about WEBCON BPS, because based on my experience, it's simply the ideal low-code platform to run your application factory on. Why is that? Well, first of all, WEBCON BPS enables the continuous improvement. We said in this agile cycle of evolving applications from prototypes, from MVPs, continuous improvement is key to success. Without this possibility, well, you end up with a lot of prototypes, with a lot of minimum viable products, not creating the value you could. WEBCON BPS comes with a unique technology called instant change. So let's assume you're on this form here, and you can either accept or decline. So what you can do in WEBCON BPS, while this instance is running, you go into the definition of the workflow and just change the behavior of the button decline. So instead of having the whole form cancelled here, it just goes back to a state called rejected and gives the author, in this case, the chance to, well, do things better, to make this acceptable, this request. Thanks to instant change technology, you can do these changes, you can perform these changes on running instances, on running systems at any moment without interrupting work. Basically, all you have to do on the left side in the form is hit refresh, and after that, if you click on decline without restarting the whole thing from from the first step or migrating data, whatever. All you do is really refresh the view you just had, hit decline, and it is no longer cancelled, but rejected. This is how instant change works. For very little costs, and again, without interrupting operational work. Also, WEBCON BPS supports you during the full 100% of application delivery. So it's not just 10%, it's also the other 90% of application delivery. One important part of this 90% is auditability. So WEBCON BPS comes with an audit trail out of the box. So what you just saw flashing up here is different versions of the same form a process happened on. You can track whatever happened, whatever changes were done, whatever input was given to a form and all its attachments to the behavior of REST interfaces and so on and so forth in a full history of each instance. And you don't have to do anything to have this. It's just out of the box. Another important part of the 90% of application delivery is the lifecycle management. With the automation of staged deployment, WEBCON BPS supports you perfectly with this. Then there's something called automatic documentation. Well, this is something, documentations are something that developers don't like doing, and therefore it's often omitted. In WEBCON BPS, you don't really have to care about this anymore because, well, it creates full standardized documentation of an application automatically. This is possible because the workflow you have just seen doesn't create code, but data. It's kind of a recipe of what should happen. And this recipe can easily put into words that later on form that documentation. But that's enough from the 90%. Let's move on to another important factor, which is citizen participation. So as I said earlier, the citizens should own the what. And WEBCON BPS supports them in defining this what they want, what they need in an easy and engaging way by letting them build clickable prototypes which are containing forms with all the information they need while doing their job. These forms can be described, their behavior can be described, all in natural language without typing any code. Actually, this is not even low code, this is no code. So for the citizens, we give a low-code tool called the Designer Desk that allows them to really, in a very natural and intuitive way, build forms, but also build the workflows. Again, not from a technical perspective, but from a human perspective. What steps are happening to get things done? Rather than, and then you generate this and here an automation starts kicking in and so on and so forth. That would not be natural for citizens. This is all natural. And the output of all of this is a clickable prototype. And again, you're in the circle of prototyping, criticizing, adapting, because, well, it's easier to criticize something you can see. So if you have a clickable prototype, you get way better feedback and are done with the planning way faster than when just sitting down with an empty Word document in front of you and starting to describe what you actually want. But it's not only a clickable prototype you get, you also get, again, a documentation which you can hand over to IT. So IT gets not only the prototype, which can, by the way, be used by transferring it from the no-code tool to the low-code tool as a base for low-code development, but you also get a full documentation that shows, well, explains actually the entire what. So what should happen, what is expected, what is needed by the citizens. Based on that, it's way easier for IT to start wondering about the how and start building things. Okay. Are there any questions?
Thanks so much, Philip. As Philip said, it's time to ask questions now. So if you have a question, you can go ahead and type it into the questions window. There are a few that we can get started with. So if citizen development doesn't work, what alternatives are there?
Well, we are working with something that is called citizen-assisted development. So, which basically also uses the idea of that I presented, with the citizens defining the what, and therefore assisting IT that is responsible for development with application building. So citizen-assisted development is based on the first definition of the what, of course, but also of continuous interaction between the citizens and the IT department in this process of continuous improvement. So citizen-assisted development is maybe not an alternative. It's just the next evolutionary step of citizen development.
Okay, thank you. One more question. Are there any numbers confirming, e.g. the advantage of consistency? Is it really that big of a deal?
The advantage of consistency. Well, yes, there are numbers. Actually, our customer Südzucker, they measured, because they had another low-code platform running in parallel in their organization, so they had like really the possibility to compare inconsistent versus consistent applications, the consistent applications they build with WEBCON BPS. And if I get it right now, it was really like 5 or 7 times less training effort for new applications than they had in the other inconsistent world. So this is something that you can measure, especially in huge organizations. If you deliver dozens of applications every year, you cannot have 1,000 people spend hours on training for each of them.
Okay, perfect. It looks like that's the last of the questions, Philip. Thank you so much for taking the time to complete this webinar today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you too. And thanks everybody for attending. That is the end of today's presentation. We will be adding this to the resource center, and I will let you know when it's available. Thanks again for joining. Take care and goodbye.